when it comes to sort of TikTok Tom, like we've talked about a lot about the past. Um, what's going on with TikTok Tom now?
Right now, we're working away on a book called Dead Souls. It's we just finished up So What, which you have a copy of. It's our annual version of our next book, and it's going to be a full color book. And this time we have a lot of new people on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And we're thinking of a November deadline for it. So October, November, we're trying to hit, you know, hopefully the Halloween deadline. But again, with COVID, that's why we're not, we're giving ourselves some time because everyone has families, everyone has work. So COVID has really pushed things aside.
Yeah, no kidding. And yeah, that is one important thing to mention for anyone out there watching. Um, this is not your full time jobs. Like you guys have, in some form, I'm assuming like 8 hour a day jobs or something that you're doing that occupies most of your time. You've got families to take care of, and then you do comics on the side.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's collectively like whoever else is in the group currently the same for them, right?
All of us, all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, we
Yeah,
give
for sure.
ourselves so much of a deadline because we're just like, even to do 12 pages, we know it's going to take, especially when you have kids. When you have kids, you only have very limited time to draw. Paul knows this very well now.
No, it's true. But I mean, yeah, we'd like to get it out sooner if we can. And you know what? If people do the work and get it done, it'll get out sooner. I mean, that's why it's so important that we think that people keep in touch with us, right? Like follow us on social, and because Major Tan, he's printing out new T-shirts, he's printing new merchandise. I mean, we got the new book coming out. We got. I'm finishing up a three-page story right now that Jatan will put on the TikTok Tom site. So, I mean, we still got stuff going. The annual is kind of like our special thing. It's kind of like a big thing to do. Um, just to celebrate what we've been doing for so long.
Hmm.
Now, along with the Dead Souls, which we Dead Souls and So What, we have an annual color book which we've been planning now. So every year we're trying to produce one. In the meantime, there's a weekly online comic called Across the Universe, which Tom, you and I have been working on. The overall story started years ago, and now we're just continuing that, and it's posted every Wednesday on our website.
So that'll be on the TikTokTom.com.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. And I did see that you guys have a Patreon. Um, is that unfortunately I should have, I didn't though, go through the reward tiers. How does the Patreon work? What does it do for you guys, and what do your patrons get?
Now, Patreon, it's patreon.com slash TicTocTom. And what that does is it's basically support us and get funding for our colored books, any other printed materials we want to do. And it's for most of the Patreon supporters, they'll get behind the scenes sketches. There's a couple of stories that we posted that we haven't printed anywhere else or have it online, so they get exclusive material on that. And advanced and the story Ken's working on for Dead Souls. We posted some of his script, a lot of his
Oh,
sketches, and characters designs and page designs by Peter Macchione, who's drawing Ken's story. So you get a lot of, and for the Across the Universe story, you get an advanced 1 week access to the
oh,
pages.
oh, cool. That's really Frank. That's great. So it's basically the Patreon will get you access to stories faster, as well as sounds like quite a bit of behind the scenes stuff that you can see the scripting, the art that goes into it before it's a full on comic.
Yes, lots of things on there. And I just finished a 6 page story that I'm going to be exclusively putting on the Patreon, which won't go anywhere else also. So that way it's just a way of saying thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And
And
right now, I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask about Dead Souls, but add more. Feel free.
No, I was going to say we just we're in the process of printing some T-shirts up. Also, we printed T-shirts originally when we did the full-size book, and we did very well with them. And we've been getting people asking us, going, "Are you going to be doing any more T-shirts?" And we've been holding back, and finally we said, "You know what? Let's print some." So hopefully
Awesome.
we'll be ready in about a week's time.
Awesome. I am curious. So I'll have it come up on screen. The I guess the logo for TikTok Tom, where it's the TikTok Tom all written out. Is that what's on there, or is it going to be art from the series?
No, just the logo,
Right on.
which was designed by our great friend Yarko,
Okay.
another fellow OCAD student.
Yeah. Awesome. Because yeah, I noticed like the comics I've got there on the sticker you used to seal the bags and boards with them had that writing, and I really like that. It's a tight look. It's interesting. It's a little quirky, a lot like Tom. Yeah, personally, I would like to have a shirt on that. So when they're out, make sure to post links on it
Oh
so I can get
yes,
one for
yes.
myself. That's awesome.
Paul, do you want to mention our logo designer?
Yoko? Are
About
you talking about Yoko?
Yarko, yes.
Well, Yoko he was a classmate at the OCA. Quirky, kid with dreadlocks who was a tattoo artist, and we had the original book when it came out as a mini. It was spelled differently, TICK instead of TIC. And at a certain point, we decided that we wanted to kind of rebrand a little bit. We asked this tattoo artist if he wanted to do it for us. And he did that logo like 30 years ago, and that's still the same logo that we're using today. And even now he's moved back to Concord and he's still tattooing. You know what I mean? Like a total free soul. So we're really lucky to get him involved at that point.
Awesome. Wow. That is, you guys have such the whole group collectively, obviously. You have such a legacy and such an interconnected um, sort of network, realistically, just between each other, obviously. But it seems like within most of Toronto, if not Canada. I did want to ask. Obviously, you all attended OCA, so it's in Toronto. Um, are you guys all from Toronto originally, or did you move from elsewhere? Were you born in Toronto? What's sort of your backgrounds?
Okay, I'll start.
Well, I was born in the
Oh,
West. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
okay. Well, I wasn't born here. I was born in India, but mo rest of the time I've been here in Toronto, GTA. Downtown, Etobicoke, back and forth.
Yeah, a lot of the trains. Yep.
That's it.
Ed Paul.
And I was originally born in the West Indies. I moved here when I was very young, like 3 years old. Um, I bounced around a lot of the birds. Um, Earlier when I spoke, I talked about like not having a lot of inspiration in Scarborough, where I grew up, which is why it was so important to be downtown and it's the OCA and not be like just enclosed and kind of like welcoming atmosphere. Um, I'm downtown now. I actually live across the street from the OCA. I kind of went home, my second home, and yeah, to just just keep hoping to be influenced by where I am and what's around me and stuff like that. Which is probably why my stories will probably tell you edgy side, just because of what I see every day. With based on where I live.
Mm.
But it all works, right? Everything's welcome. You know.
And I'm pretty much born here in Toronto, Canadian all the way. Grew up in Scarborough mostly, like Paul. So I used to make that big trek from Scarborough to downtown to go to school. But I know growing up, yeah, I've always been a downtown kind of person. Love the city. So for me, being in Toronto all my life, it's like I just remember all this talk that we've been discussing tonight. It's been great because it's just going down like a bit of a memory lane for me, especially things that don't exist anymore. But but yeah, Toronto's a great city.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm glad like um one that you, sounds like a lot like the three of you have spent a heck of a lot of time in Toronto, which is great, with the GTA at least. Um and I'm glad to see that you were able to network, meet other Canadian and Toronto based artists, and then even up and beyond, like you're mentioning, people from New York and things like that, which is fantastic. Now you were mentioning earlier, guys, about Dead Souls, correct? It's your annual,
Yes.
and you're
Yes.
aiming for like October, November, December time, so sort of the end quarter of the year. Is that going to be another like print comic like So What? Is it going to be like a thicker book? Is it going to be 24 pages? What's it going to sort of look like when it's
It's
ideally
gonna
done?
be it's gonna be like a So What, but it's gonna be a thicker book because we've given our we've So What was our first test in a full color book. We've never done a full color book, so we've learned learned from it. So now we're gonna give our the creators more pages, and it's gonna be a much thicker book. And some of the pages that I have seen, they look amazing. So we and the color, everyone's taking advantage of doing really nice color work. And
Awesome.
yeah, and like I said, Ken's working on the cover, so it's gonna have an amazing cover on it.
Do my best.
Perfect. I I love it. That's so good to
No
hear.
pressure, no pressure, but
Well, mind you, Paul did an amazing cover for So What, so that's a lot to live up
you
to.
did.
So yeah,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I love it, guys. One of the things that sort of came up in one of the interviews that's on YouTube, that I found just sort of as an interesting statement. I didn't catch the name of the person who said it, so the statement more or less was, and again, this is back from the '90s time, um, that you guys wanted to make TikTok Tom for fun, just to be creative and do something interesting with it. And you also wanted to get away from the superhero melodrama of the times, um, to sort of be distinct and different. Um, I'm assuming, given the time period, that's things like The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, and that sort of era of like gritty comics. Um, what comics was it that you guys didn't want to emulate, and what were the comics that were sort of interest that you were like, you know what, this is inspiring, this is a good story?
Well, I think Vertical was
yeah,
from DC was pretty much what we all were reading at the time. So I know Shatan was inspired by a lot of Vertical comics. I was. I'm sure Paul was too at the time. So I would say for me, anyways, it was Vertical hands down. They had like the Changing Man, Hellblazer, Swamp Thing, Doom Patrol. All those titles were very much
yeah.
a big influence on all of us.
Yeah, and for me, it wasn't so much not wanting to emulate books because I did still buy superhero books. Like, I never stopped reading the X-Men. I was always a fan of Byrne and stuff like that, right? So, for me, it was like, what if I had to if I had to choose one or the other, it'd probably be a Vertigo. Because they were the more interesting and more thoughtful, more mental.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we were trying to do with TikTok Tom speak experimental, right? That's why, we would do crazy stuff like Chatan would run, pardon me, would run a page across a photocopier while it was being scanned so that he could create an effect. You know what I mean? Like, so it was, Vertigo was experimental, and we gravitated towards that. Superhero books were fine, but they, like, other people were doing that already. You know what I mean? Like, they were being melodramatic. They were telling these grandiose stories. We didn't need to do that. Like, other people were doing that, right? Like, we wanted to do something different. I think that's kind of like where our impetus was, right? Just do something different, something we're interested
See, we come up from a generation that we grew up with Vertigo comics, and also big influence for speaking for these two is also Epic, Marvel's Epic
Yeah,
line.
exactly.
That was a big. We grew up. We were teenage, early, 12-year-olds to teenagers when we read that stuff, and it just
Yeah.
opened our mind to comics.
Hmm.
Not to say
Okay.
heavy metal and Fantagraphics and those things also, but we were also into. Personally speaking, I love superheroes. I love superhero comics, but Vertigo and Epic kind of took that level up, and they had interesting artists doing things on it, writers doing it, and it was great.
If I could say one thing, because I don't want to, come across as just being, it's Marvel, DC, whatever. But I was also very heavily influenced, like early on, with like Asterisk or Tintin. You know what I mean? Like I had limited exposure to European comics as well, so I always kind of had like an affinity for a different way of telling a story. So wasn't really available in North America. So maybe that's where for me part of it came from, my desire to do something a little different, right? Just like what I grew up with.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I find it um well, fascinating. Also, sort of, at least me personally, like I highly understand where you're coming from. Um, it's like a lot of the when I was coming into comics, when I was 15, 16, I remember one of my favorite comics out there was Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, a serious house on Serious Earth. Um, More so, it almost didn't have anything to do with the writing. Like I've come to like Grant Morrison quite a lot, but at the time, honestly, I can avidly remember that book and not really reading it for the story, but I was in there for the art because it was
Yeah.
interesting and it was different. And so when it comes to that Vertigo line and the books you guys are mentioning, absolutely, like if it's different, if it's tackling visually something in a different way, if it's telling a story that heck, Superman can't be told with for whatever reason, um, I definitely can understand it, and I think a lot of people out there will be able to. And I'm glad that that's sort of what geared you guys up in order to make the comics that you have made.
No, yeah, no, what you said is perfect. And, a lot of that influenced us. And hopefully it shows in our work.
I definitely think it does. One thing when I was going through So What that I liked was it felt, and I didn't realize how well you'd done this until obviously the end of the book, but the book felt a little disjointed to me, and it felt um, I wasn't prepared for it, right? So I'd start reading it, and Tom would be on and be this like super chill person, and he's chasing a T Rex, and I'm like, okay. And other characters are just like, yeah, just let him do his thing, like don't even worry about it. And then as stories would go on, they would just be these weird little snippets into people's lives, and I was like, okay. And then as it gets towards the end of the book, it all sort of loops into itself, and I was just like, damn, that was really well done. And each story and each different artist and writer, the way that you guys frame things, the shots you choose to show, um, are one between characters very unique. I found, and that sort of it felt a little bit like I was reading. I don't want to call it like one of those indie comics, but something like Vertigo, where they're intentionally trying something different and trying to tell a story in a different way than what would be done by maybe Jack Kirby or someone. And it had that feel, and I think clearly, given that was from So What, you guys have maintained that feel or maybe honed it over the years. So yeah, kudos to you guys because it was a lot. It
Thank
was a
you.
very fun read.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that when we've been doing this for so long for the love of it, and not looking to make a living and stuff like that, it affords you a lot of leeway in terms of what you can put down on the paper.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think, we're doing this because we want to create comics. We love comics, and we're doing it for fun. And again, like what you mentioned earlier, all of us have day jobs, so we're doing this for fun. It's not for the money. It's because we want to produce something.